this group now to perhaps get the schoolgoers out. The president is denying it, the president of Nigeria, but there have been negotiations with the group.
Tell me, in your opinion, is it possible that the democracy that we share here in North America will not work in other parts of the world?
Oh, I think that's very, very true. You know, some people, democracy usually has to have a certain level of economic
stability and strength.
Stability and the middle class to promote it, because in countries with no middle class, it's difficult to get a sustained democracy.
Right.
And I think countries really, democracy has to bubble up from the bottom, not be imposed like we tried to in Iraq and Afghanistan from the top down using military force. It just doesn't work because people want to accept democracy. Democracy is a great thing, but they have to be ready for it, number one. And number two, they like it to be their idea rather than the use of force. The use of force, anything brought with the use of force, whether it's giving candy to kids or whatever else, is resented by local people because it's not them that's doing it.
I look at
I think if a foreign power came to Canada or the U.S. and did some of the things that the United States has done overseas, we wouldn't like it here if it were done to us like that.
I agree with you 100%. I remember doing stories a couple of years ago about what was going on in Egypt and how the people in Egypt didn't want martial law. They didn't want the military involved. They fought tooth and nail to get democracy. And now they're fighting tooth and nail to get democracy out and the military back in.
Right, exactly. So these countries will go from one strong leader to the next. It's just a different, sign on the door. But the problem is, I think first of all, I don't think, even if we could institute democracy from the top down, if we did it right, I don't think we know enough about the culture in many of these countries to do that. And also, democracy in the Islamic world right now means like radical Islamists may do fairly well in the elections, like happened in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah. I agree with you that democracy is wonderful, but it has to be wanted before it can be successful. And I think there are many places around the world where the West is trying to force democracy into the public and to the citizens as well as to the governments. And just like anything else, if you force a person to do something that they don't want to do, you're going to get resistance. And I think that this is what we're seeing in a lot of these countries and a lot of these conflicts that are going on in the world today. Right, I think that's right. And a lot of the blowback terrorism that we get is as a result of interfering in Islamic countries, because even moderate people of moderate Islamic tendencies, they realize that the faith requires them to repel non-Muslim forces from Muslim lands. Well, of course, the United States went into Saudi Arabia, and that's what triggered bin Laden to start attacking the United States. That's just one big example of why you don't want to do these things. A couple of months ago, President Obama drew a red line in Syria. And when that red line was crossed, another red line. Do you think that the president's indecisiveness in Syria had anything to do with what President Putin did in Ukraine? Well, probably not, because the Putin knows that we're not going to fight a nuclear war, which is the ultimate possibility whenever Russia and the United States get into it. Because Russia, even after the Cold War is long over with, it's the only country with thousands of warheads to match the U.S. thousands of warheads. So anytime you get into a dust-up with Russia, that's always looming in the background, even if nobody's blatantly threatened each other with the nuclear weapons. But I think that we overstate what we do in one place is going to affect another place. And frankly, I don't think Obama should have made a red line, because chemical weapons, frankly, don't kill that many people. It's about 1% in the Syrian war, and that's traditionally
even during World War I, where they were used on a mass scale, about only 1% of the casualties were caused by chemical weapons. Now, it's not to say that dying by chemicals is a good thing,
right?
But it's not dying of an explosion or starvation, as is happening in Syria. That's not fun either. So I think the chemical weapons thing was overblown, and I'm glad to see that they eventually worked that out. And basically, Russia bailed the U.S. out, and of course, we've lost track of that in this whole Crimea thing.
Exonation, Ivan Eland is our special guest this hour. He's the Senior Fellow and Director of the Center on Peace and Liberty. One part of the world that really bothers me is the tension between Pakistan and India. Here we have two countries that both have nuclear capability, and it seems at times that that one is just waiting for the other one to scratch them the wrong way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And Pakistan is the most dangerous country in the world. Forget about Afghanistan, Iraq, Egypt, wherever. Pakistan, and we destabilized Pakistan. The NATO has, U.S.-led NATO, by conducting a nation-building war in Afghanistan. As I mentioned earlier in the program, the Pakistani Taliban never existed before that. The Afghan Taliban did, but not the Pakistani Taliban. And U.S. drone strikes have destabilized that country. And the reason Pakistan is so dangerous is because it has nuclear weapons, and that instability in a nuclear weapon state can either probably less likely that the Islamists would actually get their hands on nuclear weapons unless the whole Pakistani government imploded. But what may happen is Pakistan is under this internal problem. It may lash out externally, and who are they going to lash out externally? Their arch rival and neighbor, India, which also has nuclear weapons. Now, I'm happy to see that the new Prime Minister, who's regarded as a Hindu nationalist, invited various people to his inaugural ceremony. He was just elected, and one of those was Pakistani leader, and so they were talking, and that's a good thing in the case of India and Pakistan.
Ivan, please stand by. You and I have to take a commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, our very special guest this hour is Dr. Ivan Eland. He is the Senior Fellow and Director at the Center on Peace and Liberty, and that's at the Independent Institute. Their website is www.independent.org, and we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365. Now you can dial in to listen to the X-Zone Radio Show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My guest this hour is Senior Fellow and Director of the Center on Peace and Liberty. It's part of the Independent Institute. Our guest is Dr. Ivan Eland. He is the Senior Fellow and Director. And first of all, Ivan, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's great having you here. During the promo that they ran on the networks that we're on the Wiki broadcast. What was your opinion of WikiLeaks, and did they crucially stick a spokes into the national security of the U.S.?
Well, I think these they probably did. Assange, Julian Assange, who's the head of WikiLeaks, and he's also cooperating with Edward Snowden. They probably did, but because they oppose U.S. policy. But that is to say, should they be prosecuted and harassed like they are, like Assange is holed up in the embassy because the U.S. is after him, and he can make the legitimate claim that he's being harassed for his actions. Mm-hmm. They are, of course, charging with some unrelated charge, but when the U.S. goes after you, they're pretty ruthless about it. And I think he probably did, but he's a media outlet, and therefore I think my own view is there's certain secrets that governments have to keep, but if you can't keep your own secrets, you can't blame the press. And there's been an increasingly, Obama was supposed to be pro-civil liberties, but he's gone after some of these reporters, for U.S. reporters mm-hmm. and people like Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, because they published stuff that his own government leaked out. So I think certainly if there's a bureaucrat who's taken an oath to protect this information, mm-hmm. and he or she leaks it, sure, prosecute them, because they're not supposed to be doing that. They're making their money with the government, et cetera, right?
Well, isn't that what Edward Snowden did? Here we've got a guy who was paid by the U.S. government, whether he was working for a contractor or not, and he decides to take all this information, go over to China, go over to Russia, and like this guy, in my opinion, should be treated as a traitor.
Well, I think to some extent he should be prosecuted because he did violate his oath. Mm-hmm. However, there's some mitigating circumstances in this, and the fact that the National Security Agency was spying on its own citizens, essentially, in the United States, which in a republic, it's very important not to do that. You can have all the intelligence in the world against foreign countries, but you shouldn't be if you're in a republic, a legitimate republic, mm-hmm. you shouldn't be spying on your own citizens.
Why not?
And he pointed that out.
But why not?
But why not? Well, I think it's approaching a police state when you do that, and I think it's a slippery slope when you start spying on your own citizens. And we have very strict laws in the United States, and our Constitution in the United States, the Fourth Amendment, mm-hmm. is supposed to prevent that. And so Edward Snowden is pointing out a clear violation of the text of the Constitution. And with the defense as well, the executive